shift into 2026 carries a new energetic field, and your body is already registering this change, whether in the days leading up to it or in the first weeks as the year begins to settle. You can feel the world speeding up, demands shifting, a different density in the collective air, while something inside you responds with signals that don't fade. A persistent pressure in the center of the chest, tension building in the lower abdomen, decisions that feel solid one day and unravel the next. This mismatch reveals something precise. Your nervous system has entered a threshold state without the regulation needed to sustain what is coming. There is a critical point in the physiology of transition that determines whether the new can truly take root or simply pass through you. And this point will be revealed throughout this video through a threshold regulation ritual that reorganizes the foundation of the body itself. What separates those who cross into the new cycle and remain transformed from those who merely change the date on the calendar and repeat the same patterns is a very specific physiological condition, one that few people recognize. Your body is already registering 2026 as a real demand, and the way it responds now will determine whether you have the internal structure to hold what is being born, or whether this new field will pass by without finding ground. Closing this video means continuing to cross thresholds with a nervous system locked in urgency, missing the moment when somatic reorganization could begin. The body knows when it is ready to sustain change, and that recognition begins right now. A threshold is a passage zone where who you were no longer holds, but who you are becoming has not yet stabilized. This space is not an abstraction or a philosophical idea. It is written into the body as a tangible experience, a sense of instability, of ground shifting, of a center that no longer feels anchored. The cycle change that 2026 represents is placing millions of bodies into this territory at the same time. And what determines who crosses with continuity and who simply passes through the date without real transformation is the nervous system's capacity to remain regulated in the space between the old and the new. This in-between demands something the mind alone cannot provide. Hermetic texts describe the threshold as the trial of the vessel, the moment that reveals whether the inner container has the structure to hold what is about to be poured into it. In ancient Egyptian tradition, every passage of cycle was preceded by bodily preparation rituals, because they understood that crossing without regulation meant carrying the same patterns into the next phase of life. The body was treated as an operative temple, and no threshold was crossed unless that temple had been organized to receive what was coming. When your nervous system detects the approach of significant change, it activates mobilization states that drain the energy required for creation. The vagus nerve reduces its tone, breathing becomes shallow. The muscles at the base of the pelvis contract. The entire organism shifts into a survival configuration that interprets the unknown as threat. In this state, decisions are born from urgency, intentions lack stability, and any movement toward the new meets internal resistance before it even begins. Research in autonomic neuroscience has shown that the body does not distinguish between real danger and the anticipation of change. Both trigger the same defensive responses. Epigenetics has revealed that transitional environments activate specific gene expressions, and that the internal state during a passage determines which genes are expressed in the next cycle. What you carry in your body as you cross a threshold is not a detail. It becomes the invisible mold of what follows. The pressure in the chest, the tension in the lower abdomen, the decisions that dissolve the signals you recognized at the beginning of this video are your body's language, showing that it has entered a threshold without regulation. There is someone who lived in this exact pattern for years. moving through cycle after cycle with the sense that something new was trying to emerge, but never finding a place to land. Their story will illuminate what has just been revealed. Rebecca was 48 years old and worked as a veterinarian in a clinic, where she mostly cared for animals in their final stages of life. Spending her days beside creatures who depended on her to cross their last hours required a kind of presence that left invisible marks. When she returned home to a 2-bedroom apartment where she had lived alone since her daughter moved away to study in another city, the silence acted like a mirror. And what it reflected was a woman who had spent years feeling her body asked for something she could not give. Each turn of the year carried the same quiet promise that this time things would be different. But the cycle would close, and Rebecca would find herself repeating the same patterns, with the same pressure in her chest and the same unanswered question. The conflict did not live in her thoughts, it lived in her flesh. A persistent tension occupied the space between her sternum and her throat, as if something were permanently lodged there, waiting either for permission to move or for instructions to dissolve. Her lower abdomen carried a weight that no medical exam could explain, and the decisions she made with clarity one week lost their strength the next, as if her body was silently vetoing every attempt at change. Over time, Rebecca began to doubt herself, to question whether she was even capable of sustaining something new. She spent 2 years in therapy, learning to name emotions and recognize family patterns. She tried restorative yoga, meditation retreats, and weekly acupuncture for 4 consecutive months. Each approach brought relief, a window of lightness that lasted days, sometimes weeks, but the underlying pattern remained untouched. The pressure returned. The heaviness came back, and the feeling that something essential was being missed grew harder and harder to ignore. One afternoon in November, while accompanying the final moments of an elderly Labrador she had treated for years, Rebecca felt the animal relax completely under her hands at the exact moment life left its body. There was no struggle, no resistance, only a total surrender she had never witnessed so clearly before. That night, the image stayed with her, and she found herself wondering why, for so long, she had been unable to let go of anything in that way. That question led her to research what prevents a human body from relaxing even when it wants to. That was how she came across studies on the vagus nerve, on autonomic regulation, on how the nervous system needs specific signals of safety in order to exit defensive states. For the first time, Rebecca realized that the problem might never have been a lack of strength or clarity, but the absence of a physiological command she had never learned how to give. 3 weeks later, alone in her bedroom, she tried what she had studied. She sat on the floor, adjusted her weight over her sitting bones, let her breath find its own rhythm without forcing it, and began to emit a low sound that vibrated in the center of her chest. For the first few minutes, there was nothing but strangeness. Then something in her sternum began to soften, a layer of tension so old she had forgotten it existed, and a wave of warmth traveled down her torso as her eyes filled with tears. Rebecca's body was reorganizing something words had never reached, and what she discovered in the moments that followed is what you are about to experience now. The threshold regulation ritual works through 3 axes that integrate into a single practice. The first axis is anchoring in the pelvic base, the foundation upon which everything else organizes itself. Find a firm surface where you can sit with your spine naturally upright. It can be the floor, a chair without a soft back, or the edge of a stable bed. What matters is that your sitting bones, the 2 bones at the base of the pelvis, make real contact with the surface beneath you. Do not force your posture. Simply allow the weight of your body to drop and settle into those 2 points of support. In the first moments, simply notice the contact. Observe whether there is more weight on one sitting bone than the other, whether the pelvis tilts slightly forward or back, whether there is tension in the thighs or glutes that prevents you from fully settling. Do not correct anything yet. Observation itself is already part of the practice. When the nervous system enters a threshold state, it tends to abandon the base and concentrate energy in the chest and head, losing connection with the lower center. Bringing conscious attention to the sitting bones is the first signal of reorganization you offer the body. You may notice a subtle warmth in the pelvic area, or a sense of weight traveling down the legs toward the feet. You may feel nothing more than a strange awareness of a region you normally ignore. Any of these responses means the body is receiving the instruction. If nothing happens right away, stay with it. Some systems need more time to recognize that attention has arrived. The base does not anchor through force or willpower, but through sustained presence. Keep your awareness on the sitting bones as we move into the second axis. The second axis is continuous breathing without counting. Allow the air to enter through the nose at whatever rhythm your body chooses. Let the exhale leave through gently parted lips, without timing it, without inserting pauses between cycles. The absence of numbers is essential the moment you start counting. The breath becomes a mental task, and the nervous system stays in monitoring mode. Here, you are not directing the process. You are accompanying something that is already happening. The way one watches waves reach the shore without trying to command the sea. Notice how far the breath travels in your body. Does it stop in the chest, or does it descend into the abdomen? Does the belly expand as you inhale, or does it remain guarded, held, protected? Do not force the breath downward. Simply observe what happens when control is removed. With time and without conscious effort, the diaphragm tends to soften, and the breath naturally finds deeper space. You may notice the exhale lengthening on its own, small pauses appearing between cycles, the rhythm slowing without effort. These are signs that the system is moving out of urgency and into regulation. Keep the base anchored and the breath flowing as you bring your attention to the sternum. This area often carries a subtle armor, a containment that protects the center of the chest from what once felt threatening. You do not need to dissolve this protection, simply acknowledge that it exists. The pressure you may have felt in recent days or weeks is the body guarding the heart at the threshold. By maintaining a stable base and an unforced breath, you signal that there is no immediate danger, and the armor can begin to soften on its own. If the mind drifts, return to the sitting bones. If the breath becomes controlled again, release the control once more. This practice does not require perfection, it requires return. Each time you notice and come back, you teach the nervous system that it can reorganize instead of fragmenting. Stay here for a few more breathing cycles before we continue, allowing the base and the rhythm to settle. Before introducing the third axis, there is something you need to know about Rebecca, what unfolded in the weeks that followed that first night when something in her sternum began to soften. Rebecca practiced every night for 21 consecutive days. There was no single moment of revelation, no dramatic instant of healing. What emerged was something far rarer and more enduring. Consistency. The pressure in her chest, which she had carried for years, gradually lost its density, like mist dissolving layer by layer. The weight in her lower abdomen began to redistribute, and she noticed she could breathe more deeply without reminding herself to do so. The decisions that once fell apart began to hold, not because of greater discipline, but because her body had stopped silently vetoing them. The most tangible change came when Rebecca faced a decision she had been postponing for 2 years, selling her apartment and moving to a smaller city so she could be closer to her daughter. Before, every time she considered this possibility, a contraction would rise in her solar plexus and the idea would lose strength within days. This time, her body remained steady as she weighed the options. The decision held. The threshold that once felt impossible to cross was passed not through mental force, but through regulation built in the body. What Rebecca reached is exactly what is becoming available to you now. The third axis is vocal vibration, and it integrates with everything you have already established. With the base still anchored through the sitting bones and the breath flowing without control, you will now produce a low, continuous sound, a gentle hum that vibrates in the center of the chest. Begin with your mouth closed, sustaining an M sound as you exhale. The tone should be comfortable, not so low that it strains the throat, and not so high that it rises into the head. Find the frequency where you feel the sternum vibrate, and remain there. Vocal vibration activates the vagus nerve through the connection between the larynx and the autonomic nervous system. When you sustain a low sound, the body receives a signal of safety that thought alone cannot generate. This signal tells the nervous system that vigilance can soften, that the environment does not require constant defense. Maintain the vibration for a few exhalations, noticing where the sound resonates, perhaps in the chest, perhaps in the throat, or even in unexpected areas like the abdomen or the face. Now allow the three axes to operate together: the anchored base, the continuous breath, and the vibration in the sternum. These are not separate techniques performed in sequence. They are layers of the same reorganization, amplifying one another. The base provides stability. The breath offers rhythm. The vibration delivers the physiological message of safety. Together, they teach the body that a threshold can be crossed without collapse or rigidity. Stay with this integration for a few more cycles, without haste, allowing the system to absorb the information in its own time. The core of the ritual is now complete. What has been reorganized in the last few minutes will continue working in your nervous system over the next hours, even when your attention moves elsewhere. The body has registered a new way of responding to thresholds, and this new pattern now needs to be sealed so it does not dissipate. The next step is to create an anchor you can return to in the days ahead, whenever signs of dysregulation arise again. Notice the signals that indicate something has shifted. Perhaps your breath is moving more deeply without effort. Perhaps the sternum feels less rigid than it did before. Maybe the jaw has softened, the solar plexus feels less guarded, or there is a different kind of weight in the base of the pelvis, not heaviness from fatigue, but the grounded presence of a body that has finally settled into itself. These are the physical markers that the nervous system has registered a new configuration, still delicate but real. To anchor this state, you will create a simple gesture you can use at any time. Bring the fingertips of one hand to the center of your chest, over the sternum, and apply a very gentle pressure, just enough to feel the contact. Hold it there for 3 full breaths, allowing the body to associate this touch with the state you have reached. The gesture is subtle, can be done anywhere without drawing attention, and serves as a physical reminder that this regulation exists and can be accessed again. In the days ahead, when you feel the pressure in your chest return, the tension building in the lower abdomen, or notice decisions losing strength before they fully take shape, do not try to solve it with your mind. Instead, pause for a moment. Bring your fingers to the center of your chest with the same gentle pressure and repeat silently, "My body knows how to sustain what is being born." Let your breath find its own rhythm for a few cycles while you keep the touch. This protocol does not remove the threshold. It teaches your system how to cross it without collapsing or hardening. The seal is set. What was inscribed in your body during this practice now belongs to you as a tool, not just a memory. Each time you return to this gesture, you reactivate the same signal of safety your nervous system learned today. The threshold will still exist. It is part of every true passage, but the way you move through it has just changed. The body that began this video is not the same body that is here now. Not because something extraordinary happened, but because a quiet reorganization has taken place. The base found support, the breath found its own rhythm, and the sternum learned that it can soften without danger. In the coming hours, you may notice a different sensitivity to your internal signals, an ability to sense tension before it accumulates, a steadier presence in situations that once triggered urgency. These subtle shifts are the body integrating what was practiced, consolidating a new way of crossing thresholds. The ritual you experienced today is an entry point, not a final destination. There are other layers of regulation, other axes of grounding, other practices that deepen this same capacity to sustain the new without collapse or rigidity. The path of somatic regulation reveals itself gradually, each practice preparing the ground for the next, each experience expanding what the body can hold. What matters now is not seeking more information, but allowing what was planted today to take root. Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "The only journey is the one within." This is not an invitation to mental introspection, but a recognition that all lasting transformation must be embodied, inscribed in tissue, sustained by physiology. The new field that 2026 represents only activates in those who have descended deeply enough to create a base where it can land. The source that sustains all creation is also sustaining you in this moment of passage. The same intelligence that organizes galaxies and allows seeds to sprout is available to reorganize your nervous system as long as you offer the internal conditions for that reorganization to occur. Regulation is not a personal achievement. It is alignment with a greater intelligence that already knows how to cross thresholds. If this ritual resonated in your body, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Share this with someone you sense is crossing their own threshold without the regulation needed to sustain it. Consider becoming a member of the channel to support the continuation of this work and help more people access practices at this depth. And write in the comments, "I cross the threshold of 2026 with a regulated body that can sustain what is being born." These words anchor in the external world the transformation that has already taken place within, reinforcing your nervous system's commitment to this new way of crossing. There is another video appearing on your screen now, and it was chosen for a reason. Click the icon and continue. The new field of 2026 does not wait for those who are preparing. It reveals itself to those who have already learned how to sustain it.